Greetings friends, Survival Doc here again. In some of my other videos, such as Fascism in America, I warn about the dangers of an all-powerful central government. Our forefathers knew about this threat, and that is why our Constitution was written with the primary purpose of limiting the powers of the central government. And that is why our Constitution is under attack today. But before the government can successfully lodge an attack, they first have to demonize their victim in the eyes of the public. Because only after such propaganda will the people support aggressive actions against an innocent victim. Look at how President Bush demonized Iraq with all the talk about weapons of mass destruction to prepare Americans for his eventual attack of that nation. Without this prior propaganda, the people would not have tolerated an attack on Iraq. But after weeks of preparation, by the time Bush finally attacked Iraq, most Americans were in support of it. Of course, we all know now there were really no weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. If you want to know who the government is going to attack tomorrow, just look at who they are demonizing today, to prepare us for it. Today, I am seeing a lot of demonizing of capitalism. Of course, they are preparing us for socialism, and for whatever they may have in mind after that. Folks, our economic crisis was not caused in any way, shape, or form by capitalism. It was caused by the Federal Reserve and by government policies enacted over the years. Today, I am also seeing the demonization of patriotic Americans. In fact, they are even attempting to redefine what a patriot is. George Orwell called this newspeak in his prophetic futuristic novel 1984. And sadly, I am seeing the demonization of the Constitution itself. Folks, the government is preparing us for the elimination of this document because this thin scrap of paper is the only thing standing between us and tyranny. Here is a recent example of the demonizing of our Constitution. It is subtle, but it is there. Here's my latest issue of Newsweek magazine. On page 14, there's an article about the increase in extremists in this nation. They show a picture of a skinhead. Now, they could have chosen a picture of a skinhead wearing a tattoo of a swastika or any other type of hate slogan. But I want you to notice what the tattoo on this dangerous extremist back is. We the people, those are the first three words of our Constitution. Before the government can seize total control, they have to get the guns out of the hands of the citizens, so that the people will be helpless against the onslaughts of the government. Our forefathers knew this well, which is why the Second Amendment to the Constitution states that the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Of course, there are those who would say that the Second Amendment was only for the purpose of a well-regulated militia. But the people who claim this are not only disingenuous, but they are outright liars as well. For if you read what our forefathers said and wrote, it is clear that the Second Amendment was also added so that the people would have a defense against their own government, if it should ever infringe upon their constitutional rights. Thomas Jefferson, the man who had the most to do with the actual writing of the Constitution, said this: "The strongest reason for the people to retain the right to keep and bear arms is, as a last resort, to protect themselves against tyranny in government." Samuel Adams had this to say: "The said Constitution shall never be construed to authorize Congress to prevent the people of the United States who are peaceable citizens from keeping their own arms." Yet there are those in Congress today who are, along with the President, attempting to dismantle the Constitution, starting with the Second Amendment. Think about this. What will the government do when they decide to seize all of our firearms? Do you think the police will simply go door to door and collect them from citizens who will cheerfully hand them over? Of course not. They know that as soon as they start collecting them, the people will start hiding their guns. So first, they must have an accurate and complete record of who has the guns, how many they have, and what they have. Well, at some point, they will have to demonize gun owners, so that the public will not be outraged when the government attacks them. In fact, if done properly, many will cheer them on, just as we saw in Iraq. To seize our guns, they will first have to pass a bill that will require all gun owners to register all their guns. Once this is done, the government can outlaw the ownership of guns, and the police will have a convenient list of the location of every gun that is in the hands of a citizen. They won't have to go to every door to confiscate the guns. They will know exactly where to go. Mr. Patriot, our records indicate that you own a 12-gauge shotgun, a 22 pistol, and a 38 caliber revolver. Let's have them. That bill is before Congress, and it is H.R. 45. Here's what Congressman Paul Brune, M.D., says about H.R. 45. H.R. 45 establishes a national gun registry database of every gun and its owner for the whole country. Your private information and every gun you own would be in the system. But it gets worse. Under H.R. 45, you must pass a written examination to prove that you are fit to exercise your constitutionally protected right to keep and bear arms. Release your medical records, including confidential mental health records, to the government to get your fitness to own a firearm approved. Observe a 2-day waiting period before buying a gun, and pay a gun tax of $25 or more on every firearm purchased. So in order to own a gun, something guaranteed to you by the Constitution, so that you will have a defense against a tyrannical government, you will have to prove yourself fit in the eyes of that same tyrannical government. Here's something to think about. Something I just read in the news. And I checked the validity of this story from several sources. A family in Williamson County, Austin, have lost custody of their 7-year-old son as part of a Child Protective Services investigation because the parents taught their children to mistrust the government, an action that deemed them to be, quote, unsuitable parents according to charges leveled by police officers in CPS documents. If the police can deem a couple as, quote, unsuitable parents and seize custody of their 7-year-old child because the parents taught the child to, quote, mistrust the government, it is not a huge leap to believe that they can seize your firearm if they deem you dangerous because you mistrust the government. Folks, anyone who does not mistrust the government today is either a fool, asleep, or in denial. They could seize your gun because you are deemed dangerous because you are a gun owner. If our idiotic congressman passed this unconstitutional law, I am not going to tell you not to register your guns. If I did that, they could arrest me for encouraging you to commit a crime. And if you believe that all the criminals out there are going to register their guns, then by all means you should too. But I am going to encourage you to be ever vigilant against tyranny and to think for yourself. This is Survival Doc, reminding you, be prepared or be prepared to be fleeced.